So we discussed about implementation user, right? When you create implementation user, we have to assign the two roles. Those are application implementation consultant and IT security manager. The purpose of application implementation consultant role is to perform the setups. With the help of IT security manager, we can create the new users and we can assign the roles to user. Now we'll go and see how to create the user. Now to log in the instance, I'm going to use one user. When it comes to you for your practice also, we will provide one user, and with that you can log in and create your own user, and with that user you can proceed with the further setups and all. Okay, so this is the instance which we are going to use. I'm going to log in. This is a cloud instance. Okay, cloud instance. To connect from your system, you no need to install any plugins or add-ons and etc. Nothing is required. You can access this instance even from your smartphone. Okay, you can connect to the instance from any device which is connected to internet, because this instance would be available as internet as a source. Okay, this is a SaaS instance. Okay, SaaS. So let's connect to this instance. I'm going to use one existing user called as Amex and provide password. Just sign in. Okay. So this is a home page. Okay. Now we'll create the user called as Google. Okay. We'll go and create the user called as Google. So once you log into the instance, the left side you can see a corner navigator. Okay. You can see the navigator. And this is the logo. You can place any logo. You are working for a client. Please go on mute. Here any logo you can place, and you will understand about all these details what you could see here. Okay, very soon we'll understand. For now that is not required. Our target is user creation. To create the user, okay, to create the user, you can click on navigator. Okay, you can click on navigator. Okay, you can click on navigator. Within this navigator, you can find the section called as tools. Go to tools section. Do you find tools here? No? Then you can click on more. Here you can see the tools. Under tools, you can find one task. This we call as a task. You find one task called as security console. Okay, security console. Click on security console. Okay, now we are in this page. From this page, you can create the user. To create the user, select user task. By clicking on add user account, we'll be able to create the user. And repeat the same step once again. Okay, I'll repeat this once again. So this is a cloud instance we are going to use for our training purpose. In the last session, we discussed about user creation related points. If you want to create any user, okay, these roles you have to assign to this user so that you will be able to perform any setups with the full privileges. That's what we discussed in the last session. Now we'll see how to create the user. I'm going to use one user called as Amex to log into this instance. When we are going to practice on the same instance, we'll provide some different user. With that user, you can log into the instance and you can create your own user, and we can perform the required setup in the sequence. So this is a cloud instance, again SaaS. This is SaaS instance. You can connect to this instance from any device if that is connected to internet. I'm going to log into this instance. Say sign in. Okay. So this is the home page. Okay. This is the home page. To connect to the instance, if you have instance URL, that is enough. You don't need to download and install any plugins or add-ons. Not required. Here you can see bar icon. Okay, you can see 3 bars. Okay, click on that bar icon. That will take us to navigator. Navigator means within this instance, if you want to go to any page from this navigator, you can navigate. Click on this navigator icon, and this navigator is showing all the privileges what this current user has. Some ex user got access to what exactly all you can see within the navigator. Okay, but we are here to create user. The rest all we'll discuss later and we'll start working on those. But for now, what we want to do is we want to create the user. To create the user, you have to go to tools section. Tools. Okay, here you can look for tools. Okay, there will be a title called as tools. You can look for tools. Over it is showing tools. If you don't find the tools directly, okay, you can click on more. You can click on more hyperlink. It will display, okay, the tools. Sometimes this is all you can find in the collapsed manner. You can expand it. Okay, this is all your system will display in the summarized way. Then you can look for the tools, where is the tools, and you can expand it. Click on tools, it will expand, it will display what we have inside of the tools. Now click on more. Here you could say tools. The tools, we have one task called as security console. Okay, we have one task called as security console. By navigating to the security console, we can create the user. How this user got to access to security console? Because to this user, IT security manager role is assigned. We discussed. From any user, if you want to create the user, IT security manager role is required. Now we are able to access security console from this user. That means already IT security manager role is assigned to this user. Now just click on security console. Okay, we are in this page. Now go to users. Okay, go to users. Okay, select users. Now here you can click on add user account. Click on add user account. And provide username here. You can provide the first name, last name, email ID, and the username, password, and confirm the password. So the first name and email ID, these are not mandatory. Let's provide which fields are mandatory. Last name is mandatory. I want to create the user called as Google. The same name you can give as a username. Okay, the system is defaulting the same name from last name to username that you can accept. And we'll set the password after some time. First, we'll go and assign these two roles. application implementation consultant and IT security manager. We'll go and assign these two roles to this user. Here we have a tab called as add roles. Click on add roles. Search for the role called as application implementation consultant. Application implementation consultant. Say application implementation. We just stop up to application implementation. Now you can see the different roles here. Application implementation administrator and application implementation consultant, application implementation manager. The same roles somebody copied, and Oracle also providing two roles with the same name. In some instances we can find two roles with the same name. In some instances we can find only one. Ideally we require only one. Here application implementation administrator, application implementation administrator, both are same. What is the difference here? Here a role code is there. It is starting with ASM. Here it is starting with ORASM. Okay, if you find two roles with the same name where role code is different, what we have to understand we'll discuss later. For now you can choose any one of them. So application implementation administrator we have, application implementation consultant we have, application implementation manager we have. Which role we have to assign to the user? We have to assign application implementation consultant role. Why we have to assign consultant role only? The application implementation administrator and manager roles will have limited privileges, but application implementation consultant role will have full privileges to do any setup. Okay, we need full access to the instance. So that is the reason assign application implementation consultant role to user. Don't assign administrator or manager roles, not required. Those will have a limited privileges. Okay, limited access. So I am selecting consultant role. Okay, application implementation consultant. Select application implementation consultant, and you can click on add role membership. Add role membership is nothing but we are assigning this role to our user. Click on add role membership. Now we assigned one role to user. You can see in the background the role got selected. And we have to assign one more role called as IT security manager. Okay, one more role called as IT security manager. IT security manager. Here also the same name you can find the two roles, IT security manager, but the code is different. Role code is different. It is starting with FNDIT. It is starting with ORA FNDIT. Okay. So when we have two roles with the same name, what we have to understand we'll discuss. Okay. So there is one simple point, but the two roles will have same privileges. You can choose any one of them. I'm selecting IT security manager. Okay, somebody copied the same IT security manager. See, IT security manager copy. Somebody copied and they mentioned do not use it. They might have did some changes to that role. What we are selecting is what Oracle is provided, that we are selecting. Select IT security manager role. Just click on this. That would get selected. Then say add role membership. Now click on that. Now you can see two roles we assign to this user. Now you can set the password. Okay. Now you can set the password to this user. Okay, set password and confirm the same. Say save and close. Okay, we created user. If you want to find the same user, we are in the same page, users page. You can find from here. What is the username? Google. Click on search. You can find the user record. We'll discuss few more points related to this user, related to actions. Before we proceed with that, any questions from anyone on this user creation part? Any questions, please? The user, whatever we created, we call as implementation user. We have a different type of users that we'll discuss very soon. Now we can create only implementation user that we created. And we assign these two roles. And the purpose also we discussed. And we created user also. Any questions here, please? Any questions from anyone?
So one question, right? These roles are seeded role, which is provided from the Oracle. Are we going to create any custom roles in future?
Yes, yes, we will create the custom roles. We will have one session on
Okay. Okay. Thanks.
that. What are the roles Oracle is providing? Those you can copy and you can modify, or else you can create our own roles. Okay, when we are going to work on the applications, definitely those custom roles are required. Okay, one user may require access to only invoice creation, the payables. Other user may require access to only payment. Okay, again in invoices also there should be some level of access. Those all you can set up with the custom roles. These two are seeded roles Oracle is providing. Any other questions?
Can we see the definition of the role, like what permission, what page component, the permission it is
Yes,
providing to?
yes. We can see that. What we have inside of this we can see. But in this stage we cannot understand by going through all those. I'll cover that. Okay. When
Okay.
I'm working on the payables, I'll conduct one session on role customization. There we discuss all those things. We compare one role with another role. How two roles, what privileges are similar, what are distinct. All those we will see in that session. For now, just remember these two roles we have to assign and what purpose.
Okay. And can we modify the seeded roles as well, or that's
Few
not
serial
possible?
roles we can modify, few you cannot modify. What we can modify, what we cannot modify, also we'll discuss. That part we will cover in the customization, role customization session. This would be, if you would discuss now, if you go through that, that would be so early to discuss. So,
Right. Understood.
I'll take you through those. Fine.
When the user get locked, if we reset the password, it get unlocked, or we need to click on the unlock user
No,
checkbox.
you can reset the password. With that new password, you'll be able to log in. I'll cover those points also.
Oh,
We have actions. I'll cover that. Okay.
oh, okay, thank you.
Right.
Yeah. And Lakshman, can we create the user?
Sorry. No voice. I can't hear anything. Fine. Now we'll just look into a few other details related to this user. Okay, this is the user we created. This is the display name we given. This is nothing but last name we given, right? That system is taken as a display name, and username we given as Google. We didn't provide any email ID, and the user status is active. If user status is active, you can log into the instance with this user. Locked. No, this user account is not locked. If you log this user account, you cannot log in. User may be active. If account is locked, you cannot log into the instance. And here you can perform certain actions on this user account. So you can log this account so that you cannot log into the instance with this user. You can reset the password. Okay, at the time of user creation, we given one password. If you want to change the password, you can reset, and you can delete. You can delete this user. If you want to delete, you can delete. and you can compare this user with another users. Okay, compare user. This user you can compare with another user. How these two users are different. You can do that. You can copy this user. You copy this user. Okay, what are the roles and all we assign to this user? Everything will be copied, and you can give some other name to create one more user with the same roles and all. These points we'll see going forward. Sometime we'll test this, but now we'll see how to reset the password. If you want to reset the password to the user, select reset password and say manually change the password. You can provide the password. New password you can provide. Say reset password. If you want to log this account, click on log account. Okay, you are about to log Google. Continue anyway. Yes. You can see the status as a log. Okay. Now with this user, you cannot log into the instance. If you want to unlock, what we have to do is click on the display name or username. Click on edit. Here you can see locked. This is grayed out. You cannot edit this, right? You cannot uncheck. Click on edit. Uncheck. And say save and close. This is how you can unlock the user account. Click on done. So these are the points we have to understand. Few other actions we will discuss later, because we have to, when we have some other user and all, we'll compare, we'll see how to copy. We'll go through those points. Okay, this is all about user creation and the role assignment. Now we'll log into this instance with the same user. You can sign out from the current user. Log into this instance as a Google user. Provide password. Sign in. Okay. Now we are here as a Google user. Fine. So to Google user, we assigned application implementation consultant to IT security manager. With the help of application implementation consultant, we can do the setups we discussed. If you want to do the setups in the Fusion applications or in the Fusion instance, we need access to FSM. We need access to FSM. Okay, FSM. What does it mean by FSM? FSM stands for functional, okay, functional setup manager. Functional setup manager. If you assign application implementation consultant role to any user, that user will get access to FSM. So that means the application implementation consultant role will allow the user to have access to FSM, functional setup manager. With the help of functional setup manager, you can do the setups. And if you assign IT security manager role to any user, that user will get access to security console. Okay, that user will get access to security console. That user can get access to security console with the help of IT security manager. From the security console only, okay, this user can create new users and roles can be assigned. Just now we have seen from user, we navigated to security console and we created a user and we assigned two roles to this user. Okay, the same is possible from the Google user now because we assigned IT security manager. Now, very simple point is, if you want to do any setup, if you want to do any configuration, we need access to FSM. If you want to get access to FSM, we have to assign application implementation consultant role to user. And if you want to create the new users and if you want to assign the roles to those users, we need access to security console. How do you get access to security console? With the help of IT security manager. If you assign IT security manager to any user, from that user you can access to security console so that you can create the users and you can assign the roles. Okay, so these are the points we have to understand. Fine. So when we get access to the fresh instance, we get user credentials. With that we can log in and we can create our own user. Yes, we have seen how to create our own user. Now what is the next step? The fresh instance, what we have to do is, we have to enable something, what we call. Already we discussed those points, but here there is some naming convention which we follow. To start with the instance, to start with the setups, we have to work on FSM only. With the help of FSM only, you can do the setups. Okay, FSM, functional setup manager. Okay, functional setup manager. So as a first, after creating user, the next step is we have to enable the offerings and options. So enable offerings and options. In the first instance, we have to enable the offerings and options. What does it mean by offerings and options? As per FSM, offerings means product families. Already discussed. Okay, these are the different product families we discussed. Financials, SCM, procurement, PPM, HCM. These are different product families, set of applications. So as per FSM, the product families we call as offerings. As per FSM, the product families we call as offerings. If you take example of financials offering, within the financials offering, what applications we have already we discussed as a part of P2P and O2C, right? So we have applications like, I am taking only short names. We discussed already what is the meaning of the short name. GL. GL means Oracle Fusion General Ledger. And we have AP, the financials. We have ER, accounts receivables, and CM. FA. This is how we have different applications as a part of financials offering. So, financials, SCM, procurement, PPM, HCM, we call as a product families. But when it comes to FSM, we should call as a offerings. Okay, that's how Oracle is giving the naming convention within the FSM. Financials we are calling as offering. Within the financials, what are the applications we have? GL, AP, AR, CM, FA. These are the key applications. So as per FSM, these applications we call as options. Okay. Applications we are calling as options. The product families we are calling as offerings. This is what we have to make a note. Offerings means specific product family. Offering means specific product family. Offerings means different product families. Option means specific application. Options means multiple applications. Offerings and options. In the same way, if you take offering called as SCM, within the SCM offering, we have a different option. Inventory, purchasing, and order management. INV, PO, OM. Okay, we discussed the names in the P2P and O2C cycle, right? The same. This is what we have to understand. Okay. So in the first instance, when you are going to start with the implementation, we have to enable the offerings and options. what are the offerings and options we are going to implement for the client, we have to enable those. If you don't enable those offerings and options, you cannot do those implementations. Say you are going to do the financials implementation. If you don't enable financials offering in the instance, that won't be available to do the setups. If you are not able to do the setups, you cannot create the transactions also. Say for example, your client took the subscription for financials, SCM and HCM. Then we have to enable these three offerings. Okay, we have to enable these three offerings. In financials, your client took the subscription for only these three applications. Then you have to enable only these three options. Remember, when you enable financials, you don't get everything. Again, within the financials offering, which options we require, we have to select. Okay, first we have to enable the offerings in the instance. In the specific offering, which options we are going to implement, we have to enable. That's how, what are the offerings and options client took the subscription. Okay, based on the scope of the implementation. Scope of the implementation means which offerings and options we are going to implement. Which offerings and options we implement, for which offerings and options our client take in the subscription, those only we can implement. The same we have to enable. Okay, we have to enable. If you don't enable, those offerings and options won't be available to do the setups. So this is the point we have to understand. Any questions on this point, please? Okay, no questions. And we'll discuss few more points here. Say you are going to do the implementation for your client for 10 countries. Okay, instance is the same. Enabling offerings and options is one-time activity. For every country, you no need to enable. Okay. So whatever we do as enabling offerings and options, that works at instance level. Okay, that is instance level setup. If you enable offerings and options one time, that can be accessed by any country implementation related setups. Okay, this is a one-time setup. One time you have to enable so that these offerings and options can be used by any country implementation team. After enabling offerings and options, what we have to do is we have to create the implementation project. Say, create implementation project. So here, what does that mean by implementation project? Don't take implementation project means executing the entire implementation activities. No. What are the implementation project we create within the instance that is for the purpose of doing the setups only. Okay, to do the setups and to manage the setups, we use this implementation project. Oracle is giving the name as implementation project. Instead of giving the name as implementation project, it could be good if they give the name as setup package or setup project. Okay, reality implementation project means there will be complete scope of executing all the implementation related activities. But here, what are the implementation project we create in the instance is just to do the setups. We do the setups and we manage the setup. Apart from the setups, we don't do anything in this. But they give a name as implementation project. We have to access the same. First, we have to enable offerings and options. Then we have to create implementation project. How we create implementation project, we'll see in the instance. So during this implementation project, we have to select offerings and options. What we have to do? During this implementation project, we have to select the offerings and options. Let's select offerings and options. We have to select offerings and options. So first we are enabling. Whatever the offerings and options are enabled, those will be available to select. Say for example, these are the offerings we have. You enable financials, procurement, PPM and HCM. You didn't enable SCM. Okay, now when you create implementation project, you can select offerings except SCM because SCM is not enabled. If SCM is enabled, then only that can be selected into implementation project so that you can do SCM setups also. In the same way, options also. Say you enabled offering called as financials. Within the financials, you enabled option called as only GL APR. And when you create implementation project, you can select offerings and options. You can select offering called as financials, and within that you will be able to select these options only. Because this CM and FA say you didn't enable. If you enable those, you will be able to select into implementation project. If you select the offerings and options into implementation project, with the help of implementation project, you can do the setups. Okay, you can do the setups and you can manage those setups. Okay, this is another point we have to understand. So any questions on this, please? If no questions, we'll go and see how to enable the offerings and options in case of fresh instance, how to create implementation project, how to select offerings and options. We'll discuss and we'll see in the system. Once we complete this, we have to discuss few more points related to implementation project. We'll proceed with that. Any questions here, please? Remember, implementation project purpose is to do the setups in the instance. Okay, just to complete the setups. To perform the setups, we are going to group the offerings and options so that from that project you can do the setups for only those offerings and options which are selected into that implementation project. This is for the implementation project primary purpose is to do the setups, to complete the setups, or you can say to perform the configuration, you can say. Instead of saying setups, you can say configuration also. Any questions here, please? Right, no questions. Now we'll go and see. And before we go into enable offerings and options and creating implementation projects, selecting offerings and options into this project, we'll verify this Google user got access to FSM or not and security console or not. Okay. We assign these two roles, right? Because of these two roles, this user should get access to FSM and security console. We'll go and verify that. So we'll check whether this user got access to security console or not. How to check? Go to navigator. Within the navigator, go to tools. Under tools, you have a security console. Okay. If you see the security console for any user, we should understand IT security manager role is assigned to that user. Just click on security console. Okay, this is security console page. From here, you can go to users and you can click on add user account and you can create the user. You are able to create the user. Okay, because of IT security manager role is assigned to this user. Done. Now we'll verify the Google user got access to FSM or not. How to check? So what you can do is you can click on the username and it is opening one panel. Okay, once you click on username, it is opening one panel. Within this panel, what is the panel name? Settings and actions. Okay, settings and actions panel it is opening. Please go on mute, please. Somebody unmuted, please. Thank you. Click on username. In this panel, you can find one task. Everything we call as a task. Okay. whatever we do that we call as a task, remember. So once we click on the username, it is opening one panel. The panel name is settings and actions. Within this panel, we can see one task called as setup and maintenance. Here we are able to see setup and maintenance task because of application implementation consultant role. We assigned application implementation consultant role to this user. That is the reason we are able to see setup and maintenance task within the panel. If you click on this setup and maintenance task, this will take us to FSM page. Okay, the setup and maintenance task also belongs to FSM, functional setup manager. Okay, so just click on setup and maintenance. What we discussed, from FSM, we can do any application related setups, right? By using the functional setup manager, we can do any application related setups or say configuration, right? How to do the setups from this functional setup manager? Here you can choose specific offering. I'm selecting financials. Here it will display the application. It is showing general ledger application, payables application, okay, receivables application, fixed assets, expense, etc. If you want to do any payable related setups, you can select payables here. And here you can click on this drop down and select all tasks. And it will list out all the setups which are available as per payables. And from here you can do the payable setups. But reality, we create project and we do the setup. Why we have to create the project? Why cannot we do the setups from here? If you do the setups, what we cannot achieve, those points we'll discuss. For now, just try to understand. From here also we can do the setup. After creating the project, when we are doing setups, I will explain that point. Why we should do the setups from the project only. If you do setups from this page, what is the disadvantage we will discuss. Okay, what is the disadvantage? Please, somebody is unmuting all the time. Please, if you have any questions, you can unmute and you can raise the question. But notice this point. Okay, in the same way, if you want to do the setups for procurement, you can select procurement offering. Within the procurement offering, we have a different applications. Okay, so those you can select and you can work on those. Okay, so you can select any offering and you can do the search from this page also. This is FSM home page, you can say. Okay, FSM home page. But we generally don't do the setups from this page. FSM home page, we create the project, what are the offerings and options are available, those we select into our project. From our project only we do the setup. Okay, there is some advantage if you do from the project that we will understand very soon. For now, that is not required. We cannot understand also. We have to see some examples to understand that. Fine. How we are navigating to this FSM page? You have to click on the username, click on setup and maintenance task. This will take us to FSM page. From here also you can do the setups. Okay, this is how you can verify the user got access to FSM and security console or not. We verified, yes, our Google user got access to FSM and security console. Done. Now we'll see how to enable the offerings and options. How to enable the offerings and options. I'm just clicking on this Oracle. This is a logo. If you click on the logo, it will take us to home page. Okay, when you log into the instance, you land in this page. Now what we want to do is we want to enable the offerings and options. Let's see how to enable the offerings and options. Click on the username and click on setup and maintenance tasks. So if you click on setup and maintenance tasks, this will navigate us to FSM homepage. Okay, here let's look at the term meaning. FSM, functional setup manager. Functional means we are going to work as a functional consultant. Okay, there will be another consultant called as technical consultant. Now we are not going to deal with any technical stuff. We are going to deal with the functional. What does it mean by functional? Whatever Oracle is going to provide as a product, we will work on it. We don't create anything new. Okay, we don't create any pages, we don't create any reports, we don't create any integrations and all. So our work is pure functional. How product is available, we have to understand. Then we can work for the clients by setting up that product, and how the product can be used by client, we have to help them. So that we call as functional part. Functional part means there won't be any technical. So we will work on the product which is available from Oracle. The functional setup manager. So what are the functionalities available? What are the features are available? What are the product is available that you can set up and you can manage? Manager means to manage. To manage the setups, what are the functionalities? What are the features? What is the product is available? For that purpose, we can use FSM. By using the FSM, we can manage the functional setups, what we do, not related to technical. Right. We are in this page. Now you can see the actions. Here, you can see the actions. You can click on the drop down. Here, we can find one action called as go to offerings. You can see one action called as go to offerings. Select go to offerings. So within this instance, what are the offerings Oracle is providing? You can see here. These are the different offerings Oracle is providing. Now we are going to work on which offering? Financials. Okay, financials. You could see here. You can click on that financials offering icon. Here the same information system is displaying. So when you select this financials, don't click on the name. Financials hyperlink. Don't click on that hyperlink. Click on just icon. Okay, is displaying what we have as a part of financials. What we have as a part of financials. Okay, it includes assets. Assets means fixed assets. Ledgers. Ledgers means general ledger application. And cash cycles. Cash cycles means cash management application. And invoices and payments. Invoices and payments means payables application. Directly they are giving the name as receivables. And collections. Collections is a separate application. And subledger accounting means in any application, take payables or receivables or assets, or take any application other than GL. In any applications, if you want to create the accounting entries, say in payables, you will create invoice. When you create invoice, system has to create accounting entries. So that happens with the subledger accounting only. That is also for accounting generation, that is accounting engine, you can say. We will discuss. Okay, we'll have a session on the subledger accounting also. How Oracle is providing, if you want to modify, how to modify, how it works, everything we'll discuss. And tax configuration. Okay, we'll work on the tax configuration also. When you create invoice, how tax can be calculated, tax setups and all we'll see. So one more they are not giving in this. Okay, one more they are not giving in this. If you set financials within that, you can have a expense also. Okay, there is an application called as fusion expense. We'll work on that fusion expense also in our classes. So that also will be part of it. For that, you have to take the separate subscription. Okay, for every application, you have to take the separate subscription. Financials, for payables, receivables, okay, and fixed assets, and expense application. This is how you have to take the separate subscription. Fine. So it is talking about what we have inside our financials. Okay, we have assets application, ledger means general ledger, cash cycles means cash management, invoices and payment means payables, accounts receivables means yes, receivables application, collections is separate application. Subledger accounting is not an application, that is a future, that is an accounting engine which will generate accounting entries for all these applications. The tax configuration, you can configure the tax, we will work on it. Along with that, we'll work on the fusion expense application also. How you can create expense reports, how employees can create expense reports, how they can submit those expense reports for reimbursement process, how those expense reports can be created as invoices and the payables. We'll discuss and we'll do the setup and we'll work on the process. So this is what you can understand. In the same way, if you select offering called as procurement offering, what we have inside of the procurement offering, you can see here. Okay. So what are the offerings we are going to enable? You have to select here. You can just see the status. In this instance, already financials offering is enabled because this is test instance. We are using for our testing purpose. Okay, we are using this instance for testing purpose. That is the reason already you could see that is enabled. If it is a fresh instance, we have to enable. How to enable it is simple. You can click on opt-in features tab, select financials. You can see the financials status here, whether that financials offering is enabled or not in this instance. So by default, you can see as a not enabled. Then you can go to opt-in features. I'll just disable and I'll take you through how to enable also. It's a simple process. Okay, here you can notice financials, it is enabled. That is the reason we are able to see that as enabled. In the first instance, how you can see this? We'll take you through that. I'm disabling everything. Wait for a second. In this page, this enabling, disabling these offerings and options takes some time. It is fetching the data. It will have a lot of information which is associated with these other tasks and all. Just wait for a second. Okay, now you can disable all. Just disable. So we can discuss. Without disabling also we can discuss, but we can go through the process. If you disable, how to enable, that point we can understand. Something went wrong. One second, let me refresh this page. I'll click on username. Okay, once again we'll take the navigation to the same page. Username, click on username, setup and maintenance. Go to actions, select, go to offerings, and select financials, and click on opt-in features.
These things, Lakshman, we have to learn in one shot only, right? Because we can't practice these things in a practice environment because this is a one-time thing, correct?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Some check. This is instance specific setup. Okay, this we call as instance specific setup. We do this setup at instance level. Okay, not at user level or country level. Okay, for entire instance, if you do one time, that is enough. Ignore any message. Because these offerings and options are associated with a lot of information, that is reason it takes time when you deal with this. Uncheck. Fixed assets, uncheck. Okay, uncheck expense. Uncheck supplier invoice processing. Uncheck financials. Okay, now say done. Now we disabled everything. Okay, for practice purpose, we will discuss. Okay. In first instance, if you come to this page, how do you find how you have to set up, you have to understand. Now I'll refresh this page navigation. Just click on done. Just click on done. It will update the changes. Now you can navigate to the same page. In case of first instance, if you go to offerings action, okay, select financials. This need to be updated as a not enabled. Be disabled, right? Something is there. Yeah, financials we have as this.
So something which was enabled earlier and we disable it, will it wipe out all the setup?
No. That will remain as is. Okay. If it is enabled, this you can select into project. After selecting into project, even here it is disabled. This won't be available to create the new project. For existing projects, there won't be an issue.
Okay.
Yeah. This we have to do only in the fresh instances. When you are practicing, you don't need to touch, but just to understand, we'll go through this. I think almost we disabled everything which are already enabled as a part of financials. We'll just go and cross check. Okay, this all are disabled. So few you can see as enabled. Those are by default. You don't need to enable. We'll talk about those also. Okay. So done. This is how you can see the status. Okay, in the first instance, if you select financials, you can see the status as a not enabled. What we have to do is we have to go and enable. To enable, click on opt-in features. Okay. To enable the financials offering and options inside of financials. Okay, we have to go to opt-in features. Now enable financials. Okay, enable financials. Here you can notice general ledger. General ledger is by default enabled. Without general ledger application, no finance applications. You cannot use any finance applications. So general ledger is by default, Oracle is enabling. You don't need to select. If you select financials, automatically system is selecting general ledger. Options. Supplier invoice processing is nothing but accounts payable application. If you are going to implement supplier invoice processing, you have to enable it. And these are expense application, fusion expense application. If you want to enable or else disable. Fixed assets. These all are defaulting. Why? Just now we disabled and again we are enabling. That is the reason it's defaulting. So what are the applications we are going to implement? Fixed assets application, if you are going to implement, enable it. And here you can see customer invoice processing is nothing but receivables application. If you are going to implement receivables option, nothing but application, you can enable it. Okay, fixed assets also you can enable. And the intercompany functionality, budgets. So these what are the applications we are going to implement, you can enable. Okay, what are the applications we are going to enable? You can enable those. Just 1 second, the page is getting refreshed. There will be a lot of load to this page, okay, because we have offerings and options. We deal with this, really takes time, and now I'm just saying done. So we'll go back. Let's go to offering, select financials. Okay, so those just we enabled, so it is showing as enabled. So that's how we have to enable. When you're practicing, you don't need to touch this, not required. But when you're working for the real-time project, so you can go and enable what offerings and options you are going to implement. Even if you enable the few offerings and options which you are not going to implement also, no issues at all. Okay. So there won't be an issue at all. So whatever you want to implement, those we do the setups and we implement. By selecting you as you are going to implement, there won't be an issue. So when you are practicing or when you are working for a client, you can select whatever required. Okay, accordingly, those would be available as a part of financials, and you can select the same offering into implementation project, and you can do the setups for those offerings and options. Okay, so this is the point just you have to notice when you talk about enabling offerings and options. You can see the offering level and options levels, one column called as features. Okay, column called as features. Reality, you don't need to do anything. Okay, ideally, you don't need to do anything. So, financials level, you have a features. Click on edit. So, here you can select if anything is required. Say your client is going to use application called as GRC, governance, risk and complaints, separate applications. In that case, you can enable this checkbox. Rest almost all like you could see as by default Oracle provides. Ideally, you don't need to select anything here. Whatever Oracle is providing, you can accept the same. Okay. So you can just understand the features which are associated. Those features may be available in financials, but from here you have to provision. By default, nothing we have to set. Ideally, when we are going to work on supply chain management applications, SCM applications, for many features we have to go to offering and we have to enable those features, then only those will work. But in case of our financials, ideally you don't need to set anything. Okay, just notice this point. Just click on that. So this is how you can enable the offerings and options. When you are practicing, you can enable everything, no issues. When you are working for your client, exactly which applications you are going to implement, those offerings and options you can enable. And one more point is finance related few documents Oracle is providing here. Okay, click on this. So associated features document. Okay, associated features document. So it will display all the features which are available in the financials application. Okay, all the features which are available in the financials application, and it will display setups. What are the setups we have to perform when you do the finance implementation? And related objects and the enterprise application. This not a useful information for us. Okay, once we start doing the setups, we can touch this point so that we can understand. Now, even if you go through, so we cannot catch anything within that. So these documents you can download. If you click on PDF, it will download the PDF file. If you click on this task list and the tasks, it will download the PDF for everything. For all this, they are giving the documents in the PDF format, HTML format, Excel format. So maybe after some time we'll go through, or else once we create the project, everything you will be able to see in the project also. Okay, if you want to check, you can click on this. It will download the file and you can have a look. But we don't understand at this point of time. Later you can check those. So that's how documents also Oracle is provided. Yeah. So this is how like you can go and enable offerings and options what you are going to implement for your client. The next step is we have to create implementation project. Let's see how to create implementation project. Okay. To create implementation project, you have to go to FSM. Okay, from FSM only you can create the implementation project. How to navigate to FSM? Same process. You have to click on username, it will open the panel. You have to click on setup and maintenance task. Then it will take us to FSM homepage. From there you can create the project. So when you talk about implementation project, how many projects we have to create? Say you are doing the implementation for one client. how many implementation projects we have to create. Here the simple point what we have to understand is what purpose we are creating implementation project. What purpose? To complete the setups only. Setup purpose only we are creating implementation project, not really to do the entire implementation. The name they are given as implementation project, but reality that is setup project, I can say. So how many projects we have to create?
Sorry to interrupt. One single question here.
Yeah.
In eBiz world, it was not there. Why this was introduced?
To
Right.
simplify the setup process they introduced. It was not there in EBS because it was not there. To do the setups, you have to go from one responsibility to another responsibility in all the way, switching and all. And to do the different setups, we have to take the different navigations. You have to go here and there. That's a big task. To simplify that, to facilitate centralized environment to do any setups, they introduced. Okay. To simplify the setup process,
Okay.
they introduced it. Yeah.
Yes. So is there a copy, or like if we create this setup sequence in a test environment or a dev environment because of this project, somebody is going to just copy all this configuration and replicate in another instance, if we say. Is there something like that? Or we have to do it another dev to test also, I have to do the same stuff again?
No. See, if you want to do through manual process, you can do it. Otherwise, if you do the setup through implementation project, you can copy that implementation project and you can load it to another instance. Okay, with the help of implementation project, you can move the setups from one instance to another instance. That could be any instance. You can name it as a test, production, test, development, or etc. Okay. Do the setup through implementation project, then only you can move the setups to other instance. If you do the setup directly from FSM, I've shown the navigation, right? Directly if you do in the FSM without creating implementation project, you cannot move the setups. Yep. Right. So how many implementation projects we have to create? This implementation project purpose is to perform the setups. So if you are going to do the implementation for say 4 countries, ideally we create for each country separate project. Each country we have to create a separate project so that our job will become easy. For India client, India business operations, you can create one India implementation project. For US implementation project. So the India team will use that implementation project, India implementation project, and they do the setups. The same way US team will use the US implementation project and they do the setup. If you want to create, you can create single project also for multiple countries. You can create one implementation project and India team, US team and other country teams can do the setups by using the same implementation project, but that will create some sort of confusion during the implementation. I mean, during the setups, and you may commit with some mistakes also. You will come across with some issues. What exactly those you can understand when you do the setups. So that is the reason ideally we create separate implementation project for each country. Okay. So for one country, you can create one implementation project. Smoothly, you will be able to complete the country specific setups as per business requirement. This is the point we have to understand. Okay, let's see how to create implementation projects. Very simple process. Okay. We are in the same page, but okay, if you click on task list, you could see one task called as manage implementation projects. From here, you can create implementation project. But I want to take the navigation once again. How to come to this page? You have to click on the username. Like it opens one panel. Within the panel, you can find one task called as setup and maintenance. Then it will take us to FSM homepage, the same page. Okay, select task called as setup and maintenance. Now we are in the FSM homepage. click on task list. Okay, you can see the icon as a notepad icon. This we call as task list because it contains multiple tasks. It contains multiple tasks. You can call it as a task list or a task panel. Just click on this task list. Call it as a task list. Click on this task list. It will list out all the tasks which are available. Now we want to create implementation project. To create the implementation project, click on manage implementation projects task. This is one of the tasks. Click on this. Okay. Here you can see many projects. So you are working for your client is doing the business in only one country, you are going to do the implementation for only one country. In that case, you have to create only one implementation project here. Okay, you have to create only one implementation project. Here, we can see many implementation projects because we are using this instance for our testing purpose. Okay, everybody is creating their own project. And one more very important point is, Oracle is providing one instance for only one client. Okay, one instance for only one client, one company. By using one instance, you can do the implementations for multiple companies also, but that is not accepted by Oracle. One instance for only one client. If you are working for any client, you'll have a separate instance for that client. One client instance you cannot use for other client. So we can do that. That is possible, but Oracle is not allowing that. Okay. So remember, each instance Oracle is providing for separate clients. Means they are providing dedicated instances for each client. Okay. And when we do the implementation also, we do the implementation for only one client by using one instance. Maybe you can do for multiple countries, the client should be same. Okay, this is the point we have to notice. So in case of fresh instance, if you come to this page you can see as a blank. I'll show you how it is. So this is how you can see this page. In case of fresh instance, okay, when you are working for your client, you will find this page as a blank. No projects you can see. Whatever the project you create, that would be the first project. So how to create the project from this page? Click on create. We are going to create the implementation project. Just click on create. By default, system is providing some name. Okay, it is giving the name as implementation project 10. Okay, so you can update with our name. Let's provide the name as Google implementation project. Okay, I'm giving as Google implementation project. Yes, we need that text. So the 10 or 20 we don't require. Okay, this is how we want to have a name, Google implementation project, or you can say, if you are doing the implementation for multiple countries, you can name it as Google US implementation, Google India implementation. That's how you can include the country name also. Okay, use tab. It will copy the same name as a code and description. You can see the same name it is taking as a code, Google underscore implementation underscore project. The same name it is taking as the description. And from which user we are creating this implementation project? From Google. By default, system is assigning this implementation project to the same user. Okay, reality, who has to create the implementation project when you are working for your client? Who has to create this implementation project? Who knows how to create, they can create. It is not like this is an implementation project, manager has to create. No. This is just for setup purpose. Who do the setups? Consultants can do the setups. So any consultant can create the implementation project who knows how to create. That's all. Okay, the consultant should be aware how to create the implementation project, but don't think since it's a project, manager has to create or somebody has to create. Ideally, consultants creates this implementation project. And you can see the status as a not started. Yes, this project is not started. Project is not started means We not yet started doing the setups. That is the meaning of it. And what is the start date and the finish date? The tentative schedule you can provide. Okay, so we are going to start doing the setups today, and we are planning to complete the setups. Remember, when you talk about implementation project, we are talking about setups only. We are talking about setups only. So we are planning to complete the setups maybe by 20th of Feb. Okay, within this implementation project, we are planning to complete the setups by 20th of Feb. This is just for information purpose only. Okay, we are just giving the finish date as a 20th. If you are not able to complete the setups by 20th of Feb, no issues at all. You can do the setups after 20th also. There won't be any restriction from system. This is just for information purpose. Okay, this is just for information purpose. Okay, this is how you can give the name, and if you want to assign this project to other user, you can do that. You can click on the drop down, click on search. Okay, so by default system is assigning this project to current user. If you want to assign to any other user, you can assign. So I want to assign to user called as Amex. Select. Okay, select user and say okay. Now this project is assigned to Amex user. What benefit if you assign the project to user? There is no great benefit at all. Okay, don't think this Amex will have a control on the implementation project. No, just for information. Just we have to tag with any one of the user. So when we are taking the navigation, quickly it will show the project for that user. Apart from that, there is no great benefit. We'll understand all those points. Okay. So you can assign this project to any user. By default, system is assigning the project to current user. From which user we are trying to do the setups. Let's assign to the same user. Select and say OK. Already we have seen the offerings and options are already enabled. Now we have to select those offerings and options into this project. Okay. So we create implementation project and we have to select the offerings and options. We have two options. Now I can say, if I can save this project, and after saving, after creating implementation project, I can add the offerings and options, or else during this implementation project creation, I can add it. We'll see how we can add the offerings and options during this implementation project creation. So click on next. Okay, click on next. Whatever the offerings and options are already enabled within this instance, system will list out all those offerings and options. Now from those offerings and options, whatever we require, we can select those into this implementation project. Okay, now system will list out the offerings and options which are enabled. Say you didn't enable the financials offering in this instance. Here it won't display. Now it is displaying the financials. Reason, we already enabled. Now we are going to include this, whatever the offerings and options we require into this project, we can include. The first step is we enabled. Now we are selecting into this project. So I want to include financials into our implementation project. So enable include, here you can see the column name as include. Again, we are not enabling. Already enabled, those we are selecting. Okay. I just included financials. Within the financials, which options we want to include. So if you notice, there is no general ledger. If you include financials, general ledger application will come automatically. Okay, without general ledger, no finance applications you can use. So supplier invoice processing is nothing but payables. Yes, we need payables into our project. And expenses, that we call as fusion expense. We will work on this application also along with the core financials. Include this. Fixed assets. Yes, we are going to work on fixed assets application. We are going to implement. And customer invoice processing, nothing but receivables. And revenue management. separate application. You may include it. Collections also other application. Revenue management just you can include. And business intelligence analysis. Okay, so you can perform the analysis by using the analytics. Okay, the data would be available, the finance related data would be available. You can include, you can perform the BA analysis. We'll see those. Okay, as a part of our course, we'll go through. So you can enable for the different applications, fixed assets, general ledger, accounts payable, expense. These applications data would be available for analysis purpose. This is how you can include. The same way, if you want to include other offerings, yes, you can do that. Let's include procurement also, just for our understanding purpose. Let's include procurement also. Here we have a procurement offering. Say include. Okay. And within the procurement, what applications you are going to implement, those you can include again. Purchasing. Include purchasing application. And again, we have other sub-applications called as self-service procurement. If you are from EBS background, that we call as I-procurement in EBS. Include. Within the procurement, they are giving supplier invoice processing also. That means payables. If you use procurement, it contains the applications which are required to implement P2P cycle. The supplier invoice processing already we included within the financials. Again, it is not required here. Supplier portal. This is one of the application in the procurement offering. Supplier portal in EBS we call as iSupplier. You can include. So we discussed sourcing application. We have an application called as sourcing. As a part of P2P cycle, we request for quotations, we receive the quotations, we do the analysis, we choose the best quotation, we discuss those points. This is all you can do in the sourcing application. Okay, sourcing. So just you can include. So this is how, like, as a part of procurement, what are the applications the procurement team is going to implement for the client, those you can include. Okay, here also we have business intelligence analytics. You can include. So this is how you can include offerings and options at the time of implementation project. Okay, when you create implementation project, you can include offerings and options as per project scope. Now you can say save and open project. It will create folders, finance and procurement, 2 folders it will create within our project. If you open those folders, it will display setups which need to be performed to implement financials and procurement. Again, if you expand financials, if you go through the financials, within the financials, if you want to implement payables, what setups we have to do? If you want to implement receivables, what setups we have to do? For each and every application, it will display the setups which need to be performed to implement specific application. Okay. Just we have to click on save and open project. It will create our implementation project by including selected offerings. Inside of offerings, you can find the options. Okay, it will take some time. Now what system will do is, system will create the task list and the task. When you select the offerings and options, system will create task list and tasks. Okay. System creates task list. Task list means list of setups. To implement payables, what setups we have to do. To implement receivables, what setups we have to do. The complete task list it will create as a part of our implementation project. Okay, system creates task list. Just wait for a second. It will complete the task list creation and it will display the project, because there will be many tasks which need to be completed to implement financials and the procurement. This is all it has to generate. Done. Completed. Now for financials, we have one folder. For procurement, we have a different folder. Okay. So this is how you can create the implementation project We'll discuss, we'll expand, and there are a lot of other details you have to understand related to project. So this is how you can create implementation project. We have one more option to create. Just click on done. Let's create one more project for our testing. I'll call it as XYZ implementation project. I don't want to include offerings and options during the implementation project. I want to add those offerings and options after creating implementation project. So here you can say save and open project. You don't need to click on next. Just save and open project. It will create empty project. Okay, it will create empty project. Into the same project, we can select required offerings and options. Just click on save and open project. It will create the empty project. We can select offerings and options into that project. Now this is the empty project. Okay, XYZ implementation project. Now you can add what are the offerings and options you want to add into this project. Click on add. You want to add the offering called as financials. Search, select, say apply. Within the financials, what are the list of setups we have, all it has to generate. It will take some time. Wait for a second. So in the background, you can see financials is added. Now you can click on done. If you want to add any additional offerings or just options, yes, you can do that. Okay, the same process. If you want to add procurement, you can add. If you want to add specific options like payables or receivables, you can select the task list. By selecting the task list, you can add the options. For payables, what is the option name we given? Okay, what is the option name we have seen? That they given as invoicing and payment process, right? You can search with here invoice, or else here you can see, you can understand. Exactly, you can see expand financials. So this is the payables related offering name. Define invoicing and payment configuration. Okay. Already that is there in the finance, but just if you want to add separate, how to add we'll see. Okay, task list. Define. Okay. Invoicing and payment configuration. This is the task list. It contains the list of setups to implement payables application. Define invoicing and payment configuration means payables. Select, click on apply. So that's how you can add separate options also. Once if you want to add complete offering, you can add. Otherwise, you can select the options. Okay, I'm just removing this. Select. This is there already in the financials, right? So you can select this and you can say remove. Say yes. Right. So this is how you can create the implementation project. So just implementation project is created and we have to discuss many points. how we can assign the specific offering option to team members, how we can update the status. And there are many other points which we have to understand before we proceed with the setups. So that we will discuss in the next session. Okay. So our classes are Monday to Friday, right? Monday to Friday only. So we don't have any schedule Saturday and the Sunday. So we'll correct on Monday and we'll proceed from here. Any questions, you can stay back. We're done for today. No further discussions. If you have any questions, you can stay back. We will discuss. Otherwise, you can talk from the meeting. Thank you all. Have a good day and good night. See you on Monday.